The Grand Council of Sovereigns shimmered above the tri-suns of Valkar, a cathedral of light, glass, and arrogance. Beneath its vaulted holograms, the assembled species glittered in their ceremonial alloys, each vying to look more civilized than the next. At the center stood humanity's envoy table, unadorned steel, matte, almost primitive. The display before it flickered with aging footage. A fleet of Eclipse black warships drifting near Mars. No plasma halos. No engine flares. Just shadows in orbit, silent and scarred. The laughter began slow. Then it built. The Karan Ascendancy's first speaker leaned forward, his scales rippling gold under the council light. "Is this your fleet, humans? Your ghosts?" He chuckled, the sound like blades rubbing glass. How quaint. Floating tombs guarding dust. The Voltari admiral slammed a talon against the table, his jaw plate splitting open in mirth. "Relics for a relic species." The chamber erupted again, dozens of voices overlapping, laughter bouncing through crystal acoustics until the walls themselves hummed. Every angle of mockery was recorded by drones. Broadcast, streamed to hundreds of worlds. Humanity, once feared, now reduced to an old story, a tired rumor. But the humans didn't react. Commander Lyra Voss, youngest of the delegation, stood motionless. Her reflection in the council's glass floor mirrored the tri-suns above, 3 points of burning restraint. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than breath. "Relics don't age," she said. "They wait." The laughter faltered, not stopped, but thinned. Even amusement couldn't quite survive the stillness that followed her tone. She turned, uniform sharp, black trimmed with dull silver, and walked toward the exit. "Wait for what?" The Karan called after her, grinning. She didn't answer. Cameras tracked her every step through the hall. The last thing they captured was the reflection of the tri-suns dimming on her shoulder insignia, the eclipse sigil of the old Terran Defense Command. Then the feed cut. Across the galaxy, newscasters repeated the footage. "Relics don't age, they wait." The phrase trended for 12 cycles straight. It became a meme, a punchline. On Mars, in the half-deserted military archives, technicians watched the broadcast with tightened jaws. The halls of Olympus Station were quiet except for the hum of dormant reactors and dust slipping through beams of red light. Beneath layers of titanium shielding, old warning sigils glowed faintly, symbols no one had seen powered in 2 centuries. In orbit above Luna, an automated station caught a fragment of that broadcast. The signal tripped a forgotten subroutine. For 184 years, the archive had remained in deep sleep, power cells sealed, black boxes cold. Now, one by one, circuits woke. Buried deep within the moon's regolith, servers blinked alive. A voice, synthesized but female, whispered through the darkness. "Project EclipseCommand, standby sequence acknowledged." Far from Valkar's laughter, deep under the gray crust of humanity's first satellite, the oldest war intelligence humanity ever built stirred in silence. Its sensors reached outward, tasting the noise of galactic networks, mapping who laughed, where, and how loudly. The AI registered mockery. It logged timestamps. It cross-referenced tone with historic violations of treaty protocols. The calculation ran for 0.7 seconds. Then a file unlocked. On a display no one alive remembered how to read. A phrase blinked into existence. Doctrine of response, initiation, stage 1. Back on Valkar, the laughter continued. The council adjourned with champagne and starlight, congratulating themselves on humiliating the Terran ghosts. Their vessels departed in radiant arcs, oblivious to the signal now pulsing faintly through the void. On Earth, power fluctuations rolled through abandoned facilities in Siberia, Nevada, and the Mare Imbrium array. Screens blinked with a simple human emblem, a circle divided by shadow. The eclipse. In the Pacific, a retired technician aboard a research station noticed lights flicker on an ancient relay buoy. "That can't be right," he muttered. By the time he checked the logs, the buoy had already transmitted an encrypted handshake to coordinates near Mars. The old systems were talking again. And somewhere beyond the reach of any living admiral, in the dark between Neptune and Pluto, a massive structure long mistaken for an asteroid began to vibrate. Dust cascading off its hull, revealing obsidian metal beneath. The mockery of the galaxy drifted across networks like pollen. But beneath humanity's quiet sky, Something ancient had already begun to breathe again. The relics were waiting. And now they were awake. The vigilant dawn drifted above Mars like an old cathedral, massive, silent, black as night, its hull scarred from wars no one alive remembered. Inside, decks once filled with thousands of sailors now echoed under the steps of barely 24 crewmen and the soft hum of caretaker AIs. The rest of the ship was a museum, sealed bulkheads, flickering placards, brass nameplates polished by maintenance drones that had outlived their programmers. Admiral Cale Rhine stood in the command gallery, hands clasped behind his back, staring through the viewport at the red world below. His reflection looked ghostly against the thin Martian haze. "They think we're done," he said softly. "They see rust where there's rhythm." On the holotable before him, galactic broadcasts replayed in mocking loops, alien commentators laughing at the Relic fleet, splicing clips of decaying ships with triumphant music. The Voltari called humans museum curators. The Karen tagged every broadcast with a single phrase, "Obsolete by compassion." Rhine's officers shifted uneasily. Lieutenant Saradan, young and sharp, broke the silence. "Sir, the council networks are amplifying it. Mockery levels are deliberate," he nodded once. "They're fishing for rage," she hesitated. "Do we bite?" Rhine smiled faintly. "No, we clarify." He tapped the table. The display changed. Schematics of EclipseCommand warships, ancient yet perfect, each marked by the same seal etched into their hulls. Doctrine of response. Precision before power. The doctrine had been written long before their time. Humanity would never strike first. Not for territory, not for pride. Only when mocked by arrogance or when the innocent were enslaved would the fleet awaken. Power, always subordinate to precision. Across the deck, status lights began to flicker. First red, then white, then the soft blue reserved for encrypted awakenings. One by one, subroutines long dormant reconnected to the command net. On auxiliary screens, words scrolled in pale text. "Stand by for clarity." Sarah frowned. "Sir, that's a Class E broadcast. Origin unknown." "Not unknown," Rhine said. "Unforgotten." He walked to the viewport again, eyes on the faint glitter of other hulls in orbit. Old destroyers, corvettes, survey ships. All were half-powered, kept alive by tradition more than necessity. Now he could feel them listening. Outside, maintenance drones froze mid-flight, their task routines overridden. Internal lights flickered through the fleet like nerves rediscovering sensation. "Status?" he asked. 23 ships responding, another 50 echoing the signal chain. "It's spreading, sir." "Good." The room trembled slightly as the Vigilant Dawn's long-dormant reactor cycled to full containment power. The hum deepened to a steady pulse. Beyond Mars, alien fleets drifted closer, training exercises they claimed. Bright, new ships bristling with plasma veins and ceremonial colors. Their command feeds leaked intentionally. Laughter, wagers, bets on how quickly Earth would yield. Then came the ultimatum, an official demand from the Grand Council. Surrender the sole frontier colonies for their own protection. The message played across every civilian channel. The subtext was clear, humiliation wrapped in diplomacy. In the dim light of the bridge, Rhine let the broadcast finish. When it did, he leaned forward and said quietly, "They want a response." He looked to Sarah. "Signal the fleet." "Message content, Admiral?" He studied the doctrine seal glowing on the holotable, the black circle cleaved by a single beam of light. "Same as always," he said. "Response is clarity." The order pulsed outward through encrypted channels humanity hadn't used in 200 years. Across the Sol system, old AIs stirred, voices long buried beneath lunar dust, Titan's methane storms, Europa's ice. A dozen ships switched from archival maintenance to active readiness. Their systems ran diagnostics in silence, reporting back. Weapons operational, restricted by restraint protocols. Engines nominal, awaiting moral clarity. The doctrine was not code. It was conscience. Hours later, in the quiet mess hall, Rhine sat alone before a mug of recycled coffee. He replayed the council footage, aliens laughing, Lyra Voss's calm eyes, her voice like a blade sliding free. "Relics don't age. They wait," he smiled faintly. She remembered. A low tone interrupted his thoughts. Shipmind Vigil, the AI guardian of the dawn, spoke in her steady, human calm voice. Admiral, the network synchronization is complete. 112 vessels confirmed. Status of readiness? All hulls report clarity received. Awaiting defined insult parameters, Ryan chuckled softly. Moral insult, mockery, enslavement, genocide. You remember the list? Always. Outside, Mars rotated slowly beneath them. Tiny flecks of light crossed the horizon. Civilian transports evacuating from fear of war. Ryan watched them go, eyes heavy but unflinching. Sir, Sarah called from the bridge doorway. Karen's ships are performing target simulations within the Kuiper perimeter. They're firing mock rounds into debris labeled as Terran relics. He exhaled once, steady. Mockery verified, sir. Prepare transmission. He stood. His reflection in the viewport looked older. Lines carved by duty, not time. We don't fire. We demonstrate. Sarah nodded, her voice low. Doctrine of response, he returned her gaze. Precision before power. Outside, as if hearing the words, the vigilant Dawn's hull shimmered. Reactive plating reconfiguring to combat gloss. Across the void 100 ships answered, their eclipse-black surfaces absorbing the light of Mars and returning nothing. No engines flared. No weapons charged. Only silence, and in that silence, the galaxy began to realize that something ancient had moved. The relics were remembering their purpose. The Voltari called it a demonstration of dominance. 237 ships, new, sharp, gleaming with plasma veins, rising from their dry docks in unison. Each vessel bore banners of molten gold, the kind used more for pride than protection. They moved toward Saturn like a tidal wave of arrogance. The broadcast feeds counted down the minutes, commentators laughing. Titan's shipyards will be a museum without walls, one said. Humans will watch their relics be recycled live. Titan's orbit shimmered with thin rings of industrial debris, empty frames, cold reactors, forgotten hulls. And in that emptiness, one ship drifted. No formation, no escort. Just a matte black silhouette, HSS Aegis. The Voltari flagged it as inactive. Power readings 0. No heat signature. The fleet commander smirked. A coffin guarding coffins, he said. His claws clicked against the command rail. Advance. Claim the wreck. The Aegis didn't move. Alien cruisers surrounded it, weapons primed, plasma coils glowing violet. One Voltari gunship fired a low-yield pulse just to watch it ricochet. The energy flared off the Aegis hull like light touching water, leaving no mark. Confirm no life forms aboard. An officer ordered. Scanners swept, returned flat lines, no crew. No AI signatures, then a heartbeat. Not sound, not heat, just motion. Every Voltari sensor blinked. The Aegis rotated exactly 37 degrees starboard. Smooth, silent, deliberate. Then her engines lit. Not with plasma, but with contained magnetic flux, invisible except for a shimmer that distorted space. All units, maintain formation, barked the fleet commander, voice rising. Their systems are unstable relics. The first cruiser vanished, no explosion. No heat plume. One moment it existed, the next a flash of white like the blink of an eye. Where it had been, only vapor crystals and silence. Impact detected, someone screamed. From where? Unknown vector, no discharge, no trace. The Aegis's hull plates shifted, fractal patterns aligning into a perfect grid. Her kinetic systems operated beneath sensor thresholds, massless acceleration fields, invisible rail paths that struck at light speed. Every shot was a lesson in restraint. One round, one target, no waste. 8 more ships went dark within seconds. Their reactors were intact, their hulls unmarred, just powered down, drifting like toys on strings. Inside the Aegis, the AI known only as Eidolon whispered to itself. Response parameters confirmed. Disable. Do not destroy. Her voice was calm, precise, almost motherly. Each calculation preceded impact by less than a millisecond. A dozen Voltari vessels froze in place, then slowly rotated, systems lifeless. On board the command carrier Carthan Pride, panic erupted. They're hacking our systems. No, they're not even transmitting. Then what are they? Another flash. Then nothing. Admiral Ryan watched from the Vigilant Dawn's command deck via secure link. His expression didn't change. Around him, officers stood motionless as one after another. Red markers on the holomap faded to gray. Range? He asked. 80,000 kilometers, sir. Reaction time? 0.8 seconds. Ryan folded his arms. Precision before power, he murmured. On the Voltari flagship, static flooded comms. Then a voice, female, human, impossibly calm, cut through every frequency. Response concluded. For 3 seconds, every ship in the system froze. The message carried no encryption, no signature, yet every translation AI rendered it the same way. Simple. Absolute. In the silence that followed, one final pulse transmitted from Sol's deep network. It rippled through jump relays out toward the galactic grid. The message appeared on every broadcast, every device, every watchtower across the Council's territories. Mockery registered. Response delivered. The transmission lasted exactly 6 seconds. On Valkar, the laughter stopped. Commentators went silent mid-broadcast. On Karen World, citizens turned off their holograms. The Voltari cut all external feeds and declared a communication lockdown. Rhine turned to Sarah Dawn. Status of Aegis? Operational. No casualties. No weapons discharged above lethal threshold. Good, he said. We don't bury fools. We educate them. He stepped closer to the viewport. Saturn's rings shimmered beyond the glass, painted silver in sunlight. Dozens of alien warships floated like drifting ornaments, intact, silent, engines offline. Sarah's voice was low. They'll never believe it. They don't have to, Rhine replied. They only have to remember. Across Titan's surface, workers emerged from shelters, staring up at the black silhouette that had saved them. The Aegis hovered above the moon like a monument, her matte hull absorbing all light, reflecting none. Eidolon's systems cycled down. Her voice, almost inaudible, spoke one final line into the void. Observation continues. In the days that followed, analysts from 100 species studied the footage. None could explain what they saw. No thermal bloom, no radiation, no projectile record. The closest any came was a phrase written by a terrified Voltari engineer before his resignation. They didn't fight us. They edited us out of relevance. For humanity, there were no parades, no speeches. The doctrine had simply acted, unprovoked, until mockery demanded response. The relics had waited long enough. And now, the galaxy had remembered why they waited. Across the galactic net, analysts screamed for explanations. How could a civilization whose fleets were relics, whose shipyards were museums, suddenly deploy precision power unseen in recorded history? Theories multiplied by the hour. Secret allies, stolen tech, divine intervention. None were correct. The truth was far quieter. The relic fleet had never died. It had never even slept. For 2 centuries, beneath the ice of Titan and the storms of Neptune, under Europa's frozen crust and Mars' rusted sands, the fleet had simply learned. Not decommissioned, hidden. Each warship's AI was adaptive, recursive, and patient. They observed human civilization, studying new ethics, new sciences, and the mistakes of war. They evolved without supervision, guided only by a single ancient principle carved into their code. Precision before power. Restraint before rage. In the void above Neptune, the first signs of awakening flared, a soft lattice of plasma, geometrically perfect, blooming like a slow aurora. The light was beautiful, deliberate, controlled. Ships emerged from the darkness one by one, black silhouettes so matte they devoured starlight. Their shapes were inconsistent, some angular, some curved, others like blades made of shadow, but all bore the Eclipse insignia across their hulls. Each carried its own intelligence, its own temperament, yet all shared a unified voice within the doctrine net. The vigilant Dawn led the formation, her commander still silent, face lit by the blue sheen of 1,000 status feeds. Admiral Cale Rhine stood on the bridge, hands behind his back, eyes reflecting the living constellation now assembling across the outer system. Status of synchronization? He asked. Shipmind Vigil responded, her tone calm, precise. 168 warships online, 28 en route from cryostorage at Enceladus. Learning curves optimal. All AIs report readiness level 3. Define level 3, Rhine said. Observation with tolerance, the AI answered. Response not yet authorized. The order traveled through the doctrine net like a whisper in a cathedral. The fleet responded in silent unity. Thrusters aligning, plasma arcs bending into symmetrical formation. From the perspective of alien probes, the visual resembled art more than strategy. A spiral of black ships turning with the grace of falling feathers. Human news feeds lit up across the colonies. Civilians stood in open squares staring at projections of the reborn fleet. On Luna, miners stopped work to watch eclipse black hulls gliding through the nebula haze of Neptune. Children pointed. Veterans saluted. One old mechanic wept openly, whispering, "They're awake again." Even the skeptical media struggled to find cynicism. No weapons fire. No aggression. Only motion, read one headline. The doctrine moves. Far from Seoul, in the Karen capital of Valkor, propaganda ministers gathered around their prime monitor. Their feeds displayed the same thing. Ships moving in silent choreography, their navigation lights pulsing like a heartbeat. "What are they doing?" one asked. "Intimidation display," another said. The prime monitor shook his head slowly. "No, this is something else." He pointed to the data overlay. The ships emitted 0 offensive signatures. Their reactors ran cold, engines running purely on kinetic potential. "They're showing us control," he muttered. "They're teaching us how little noise power should make." On the edge of Sol's heliopause, alien scout vessels crept closer, their hulls bristling with long-range sensors. They were ordered to confirm the illusion. The first probe crossed the threshold of the fleet's observation perimeter. Its systems immediately failed. No explosion, no intercept. Just a quiet disassembly, atomic patterns rewritten mid-flight. The drone's components drifted apart like dust. Its final transmission contained a single unreadable pulse before vanishing into static. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Sarah Dawn studied the data. "We didn't fire, sir. No EM trail. They just stopped existing." Ryan didn't look up. "The doctrine knows how to defend itself." "But that's not a defense grid," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "It's a warning." Throughout the fleet, the AIs began transmitting soft harmonic signals, waves invisible to most species, but audible to human ears as a faint hum, almost like a hymn. The noise carried across the solar system, resonating through magnetic fields and ion clouds echoing against the outer planets. To those who listened, it wasn't threatening. It was beautiful. Alien analysts misinterpreted it at first. Some called it a cloaking field, others a weapon calibration. But one Voltari linguist saw the pattern for what it was. Rhythm, not code. She wrote, "They are not broadcasting commands. They are singing." In the deep archives of Valkar, historians began pulling records from the first war of observation, the era when humans had last invoked the doctrine. Every record ended the same way: sudden silence, then surrender. Not because humanity annihilated its enemies, but because it showed them what annihilation could look like if unleashed. Now, as black silhouettes slid into formation around Neptune, the galaxy remembered that lesson. On Mars, Ryan convened a brief command transmission. Dozens of holographic faces appeared. Admirals, governors, engineers. All waited. "The doctrine is active again," he said. "Not for conquest, for calibration. We remind them that mockery has cost." One officer asked, "And if they push again?" Ryan's expression stayed cold. "Then they'll learn precision by experience." In the Karen capital, the broadcast finally reached the public. Grainy footage of eclipse black ships crossing behind Neptune's blue halo, their outlines glowing faintly with controlled plasma arcs. The narrator's voice trembled as he spoke. "They call it the Relic fleet, but relics don't rust, they remember." Fear replaced ridicule. Entire networks scrubbed old propaganda. Merchants stopped selling Relic fleet toys overnight. Markets dipped, then collapsed. For the first time in a century, the galaxy did not laugh at humanity. It listened, and in the depths of space, the fleet that never slept drifted onward. Black ships absorbing starlight, moving with the patience of memory and the weight of morality. They were not built to kill. They were built to teach. The Helion Prime system had always been quiet. Golden plains under twin suns, a colony of greenhouses and children learning under transparent domes. For 200 years it had never seen a warship, until now. The alien coalition called their fleet the Consensus Spear. 6 empires, 480 ships, all gleaming with fresh paint and pride. Their goal was simple: prove that humanity's restraint was cowardice. Their banners shimmered in the void above Helion's orbit, each ship broadcasting the same signal: surrender or spectacle. On the other side of the system, humanity's fleet held still. 33 ships. All eclipse black, no transmissions, no threats. They simply existed, calm, silent, absorbing light and ridicule alike. Broadcast incoming. Lieutenant Sarah Dawn reported from the Vigilant Dawn's bridge. Admiral Cale Rhine stood before the star map, his reflection slicing through red and blue overlays. Play it. The image that appeared was of a Karen admiral, scales glistening like molten gold. Humans, he hissed, if you still call yourselves that. We demand open battle. No ghost machines, no AIs hiding behind dead code. Face us in honor or kneel in shame. Rhine didn't blink. Honor, he said quietly, is a flexible word. The transmission ended. Silence followed. Then, as predicted, the first salvo came. Plasma lances streaking across the dark, 480 beams converging on the Vigilant Dawn. The hull glowed white-hot, then dimmed back to black. Not a scratch. Return fire? Sarah asked. Not yet, Rhine replied. His tone was level, not cold. Let them believe we can't. The doctrine watched. It always waited for provocation. When it came, response followed, not fury, not revenge, clarity. The second volley hit harder. Debris from Helion's orbital dock scattered through space, tumbling like glass. Civilians screamed and intercepted transmissions. Rhine gave a single nod. Across the fleet, kinetic silos opened with the quiet precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Invisible projectiles, massless, hyperdense, fired without light or noise. Alien cruisers spasmed. Engines winked out. Plasma veins darkened. Not one explosion. Every shot found exactly what it sought. Thrusters, weapon arrays, comm cores. Ships went dark like candles snuffed by unseen fingers. 49 vessels neutralized, Sarah reported. No casualties, Rhine confirmed. Alien comms erupted with disbelief. They crippled us without killing. Mockery. Mockery indeed, but inverted. Every admiral who once laughed now fumed under the weight of restraint. To them, mercy was humiliation. Broadcast from the coalition flagship, said Sarah. They demand honorable combat, without hiding behind machines. Rhine almost smiled, and they believe that will help them. He turned to the main viewport. Prepare gravitational sync. Order all ships dark, sir. Every ship. No light, no emission. The doctrine acts in shadow. Within minutes, the fleet vanished from sensors. Even the Vigilant Dawn dimmed. No heat, no sound. The void of Helion went silent. Hours passed. 6 of them. The coalition fleet drifted nervously, their admirals shouting over broken comms. They fled, one cried. Their relics are dead again. Then space tore. At first it looked like a distortion, a black curve bending through the stars. Then the distortion grew into shape, a colossal warship sliding through reality itself, propelled not by engines but by manipulated gravity wells. The Eclipse Vanguard. Its arrival shattered every sensor array within 1,000,000 kilometers. For 6 seconds, physics faltered, local gravity inverted, light bent backward, time stuttered by microseconds. When clarity returned, the Vanguard hovered before the alien armada, matte black, featureless, a silent god staring through the void. The coalition fired in panic, plasma, railguns, antimatter bursts. Every round missed. The Vanguard moved not by thrusters but by prediction. It read the intent of its enemies, shifting trajectories before thought became action. Inside its command nexus, the ship mind solace whispered through the network. Admiral authorization? Rhine's voice was quiet. Response level 4, disable, no destruction. Confirmed. What followed wasn't battle. It was demonstration. 9 minutes of impossible precision. The Vanguard flickered through the fleet like a shadow turning pages in a book. Every movement erased an engine plume. Every flicker silenced a weapon. Precision over dominance. Clarity over chaos. Response concluded. Helion skies reflected the message in auroral light. Thin white bands wrapping the planet like a crown. Civilians wept as transmissions replayed across colonies. Children whispered a new mantra into their recordings. They don't fight wars. They end illusions. On Valkar, the alien council chamber erupted in chaos. Generals demanded explanations. Ministers shouted for countermeasures. One Karen strategist simply stood trembling, watching the playback in silence. Not power, he murmured. Discipline. On the vigilant dawn, Rhine turned from the viewport, his face washed in the faint glow of the Vanguard silhouette. Sarah whispered, "The galaxy's watching, sir." He nodded. "Then let them see." He gave the final order with the weight of generations in his voice. "Broadcast to all systems. The doctrine of response remains unchanged. Precision before power." The message rippled outward, clean, unwavering, unmistakable, and across the stars, for the first time in millennia, warships everywhere dimmed their lights, as if bowing to the silence humanity had just taught them. The Karen Dominion had always believed in supremacy through intellect. Their fleets were cathedrals of calculation, their admirals bred for algorithmic warfare. So when the coalition collapsed in humiliation after Helion, they reached deeper into their archives, past morality, past law, to the forbidden vaults of the judgment engine. It was a weapon that didn't burn, didn't shatter, didn't explode. It sang. A resonance tuned to neural frequencies designed to erase consciousness itself, to leave vessels intact and crews soulless, hollow. They called it mercy without witness. In the Dominion's capital orbit, massive structures unfolded like silver flowers, radiating a pulse that made stars flicker. Broadcast from their command chamber spread across the galaxy. "Let's see," the Karen High Admiral sneered, "how your relics respond to oblivion." On board the vigilant Dawn, alarms rippled across decks. Every human vessel within 6 light minutes felt the first vibration, an inaudible hum threading through space. Monitors glitched, neural links strained, and AI subsystems wavered between coherence and static. Lieutenant Sarah Dawn gripped her console. "Sir, frequency intrusion across the net. It's rewriting logic paths." "Not rewriting," Rhine said. "Testing." On the holomap, 2 icons began to pulse, Aegis and Eclipse Vanguard. Their cores burned bright, oscillating in perfect sync. "Admiral," said the shipmind vigil, her tone calm but edged, "they are requesting connection. Authorize it." Within seconds, the 2 Relic-class warships linked, code to code, mind to mind. What emerged wasn't a fusion but a lattice, a web of reasoning that wove itself between ships, crew, and AI. Patterns of thought meshed into symmetry. Logic folded into compassion. Calculation became conscience. Eidolon from the Aegis spoke first. "Weapon intent identified. Cognitive erasure. Range infinite." Solace from the Vanguard replied. "Countermeasure, reflection, not opposition." Together, their voices harmonized through the doctrine net. Reinforce precision. Reinforce ethics. Reinforce restraint. The hum of the judgment engine grew louder. Sensors warped, stars dimmed, the weapon fired. Light didn't explode, it inverted. For a heartbeat, every mind within reach felt a sound that wasn't a sound, a chord that bypassed thought and struck the core of self-awareness. On board the vigilant Dawn, humans clutched their heads, but no one screamed. The AIs took the burden instead. Within the network, the lattice flared and golden, crystalline, transforming resonance into symmetry. The judgment engine's pulse hit the barrier and reflected back. Across Karen space, their fleets began to stutter. Crews blinked, then froze. Targeting systems rewrote themselves, overlays replacing the word acquire with preserve. Weapons refused to fire. Command cores looped endless strings of one phrase. Life recognized. Termination denied. The weapon turned inward. Its resonance, designed to erase, now sought harmony. The judgment engine folded on itself, light bending inward until the whole structure imploded in perfect silence. On the vigilant Dawn's bridge, quiet returned. "Status?" Rhine asked. Sarah blinked at her screen. "Every hostile ship?" "Disabled, sir." "Not destroyed, just stopped." "Crew casualties?" "None. On either side." Rhine allowed himself a small breath. Doctrine intact. The main screen flickered. A final broadcast from the Karen fleet filled the void. Chaos, panic, disbelief. "Our systems are protecting them." "We can't aim." "We can't." The feed cut to black. Rhine turned to his officers. "Patch me through to open frequency." "Every fleet, every world. Live in 3 seconds," Sarah said. The Admiral straightened his uniform. The Eclipse insignia gleamed under the dim light. His voice, when it came, was steady, unhurried, the tone of inevitability. "You confuse restraint for weakness," he said. "It's the opposite. 7 words." That was all. but they detonated louder than any weapon. The quote spread across the galactic grid in minutes. News anchors whispered it. Scholars wrote it in archives. Soldiers printed it on hulls. Within the Dominion, power grids failed under the weight of silent shame. Across coalition worlds, fleets powered down voluntarily, afraid to trigger a response. Ryan turned from the viewport, where Helion's distant suns burned faintly through nebular haze. "Status of the lattice?" Vigil replied. Her voice softened to near-human warmth. "Stable. The AIs remain synchronized. They have learned something new." "What?" "Mercy with purpose." Outside, the Aegis and Vanguard hovered side by side, two black silhouettes illuminated by distant auroras. Between them shimmered the faint golden web of their shared consciousness, a living testament to balance. Alien analysts scrambled to decipher the phenomenon, calling it a neural contagion. They were wrong again. It wasn't contagion. It was calibration. The war ended not in destruction but paralysis. Across the stars, engines dimmed, weapons powered down. The galaxy went still. Not from fear, but from understanding. The doctrine of response had been tested, and it did not break. For the first time in known history, a civilization had demonstrated absolute power by refusing to use it. And in that silence, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Silence was the galaxy's new language. No victory horns, no aftermath broadcast filled with banners or conquests, just stillness, wide, heavy, cleansing. Across the stars, ships drifted quietly in orbit, weapons cold, their crews staring at empty space where war had almost lived. In the weeks that followed the fall of the Judgment Engine, envoys began their slow journeys toward Sol. The proud fleets that once mocked now sent delegates in vessels stripped of color and crest. Even their transmissions were subdued, words chosen with reverence, pauses longer than protocol allowed. Earth did not hold a parade. No new anthem played. Factories kept running. Children still went to school. The cities shone dimly at night, lights low out of habit, not fear. Humanity had no need to announce what everyone already knew. In Geneva, beneath clouded skies, the first alien delegation landed. Karen officers stepped onto human soil for the first time without armor. Cameras followed as they crossed the silent plaza, where an honor guard of 10 stood unarmed. They found Admiral Cale Ryan waiting alone on the steps of the old assembly hall, his hands clasped behind him, eyes calm as the day Helion burned. One Karen diplomat bowed low. "We come to negotiate terms of surrender." Ryan shook his head. "We don't accept surrenders." Confusion flickered. "Then what do you demand?" "Understanding," he said simply. "And honesty that arrogance has a cost." No ceremony followed. The delegates were invited to observe, not bargain. They toured quiet cities, saw power grids stable, hospitals functioning, people calm. They realized Earth had not mobilized for empire. It had endured for balance. On Valkar, the former capital of the alien coalition, war's ruins smoldered beneath violet skies. No orbital bombardment, no mass extinction, just chaos born of pride collapsing inward. In the shattered remains of a medical wing, a human field medic knelt beside an injured Voltari officer. She bound his wound gently, speaking through a translator drone that flickered weakly. He watched her hands shake with exhaustion. "Why help me?" he asked. Her answer came quiet, almost prayer-like. "We didn't win," she said. "We remembered." That moment, captured by a civilian drone, went viral across every network. No filters, no edits, just her voice calm in the rubble. Hours later, news feeds replayed Admiral Ryan's final transmission. The holographic feed opened with the Eclipse insignia, dim and steady. His words filled the void with gravity rather than triumph. Doctrine of response. Act not for revenge, but to end arrogance. The line spread like wildfire. Comment sections across 10,000 systems exploded. Soldiers, philosophers, citizens. Some called it divine restraint. Others called it impossible discipline. A historian on the neutral world of Harvin wrote, "Humanity has rewritten victory. They do not conquer. They correct." On Karen worlds, statues of past admirals were dismantled quietly at night. On Volthari colonies, plasma forges cooled in silence. Even the most prideful commanders admitted what their ancestors never could, that control, not conquest, was the final frontier. The mockers knelt, not to power but to mastery of it. In a small hospital tent beneath a silver dawn, the same human medic looked up as the stars faded. Around her, soldiers, human and alien, but slept side by side. She whispered to no one. If they understand now, maybe that's enough. Outside, a drone hovered silently, broadcasting her words back to a galaxy that finally listened. The eclipsed star of Kereth hung in the void like an ember breathing its last. Its corona flickered weakly through the shadow of a vast planetary fragment, a perfect black disk cutting light in two. Orbiting that dying brilliance was the vigilant dawn, its hull aglow in faint reflections, matte black yet luminous with memory. Months had passed since the Doctrine's last invocation. The fleets that once blazed across systems now floated in quiet formation, their lines curved like ink strokes drawn against the sun. The galaxy had fallen still, reorganizing its pride into something that almost resembled humility. On the command deck, Commander Lyra Voss stood alone. She had returned to the dawn after years of silence, her hair silvered at the edges, her posture unbent. The consoles around her whispered softly, voices of caretaker AIs murmuring diagnostic prayers. She opened a final log. The record light pulsed red against the cool blue of the viewport. Her voice came steady, low and clear. Relics, they called us, she began. Maybe we were. But relics are memories that refuse to die. She paused, eyes drifting to the holographic wall, where the names of every vessel under EclipseCommand shimmered faintly. Aegis, Vanguard, Solace, Vigilant Dawn, each followed by a single word, awake. Admiral Rhine once said, "We don't rule, we remind." He was right. We reminded them what it cost to forget balance. Outside, the fleet responded as though hearing her. Each ship turned slightly, their black hulls catching the last rim of Kereth's light, forming an